COVID has forced the NBA to adopt new rules about rosters around the league. How does that impact the Miami Heat and Caleb Martin? Plus, Nostradumbwes offers his predictions for this week's games and potential trade scenarios that will help bolster the Heat's playoff chances. All that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Tuesday edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat. However you may be listening on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thank you so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Wes Goldberg. Today's episode is brought to you by Truebill. Truebill is a new app that saves you money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need, and can even negotiate better deals on those you don't want to keep. We've got a great show for you lined up today. We're in between games here, so we'll talk about some potential trade options for the Miami Heat to bolster their title chances. I'm sure you're going to love some of those. Plus, Nostradumbwes returns. I think he had a good week last week. We'll see how he did. Plus, we'll talk about what his predictions are for this upcoming slate of games this week. But we'll start off with some basic news and notes around the league. Unfortunately, it looks like PJ Tucker will not be available for tonight's game against the Indiana Pacers. A important blow, I think, to the Heat's chances of winning that game back at home after a long 4-game road trip in which the Heat went 2-2. They lost PJ Tucker midway through the game on Sunday night, and he'll be out of action at least for the foreseeable future against the Pacers. Tyler Herro will be listed as questionable. He's still recovering from that thigh contusion he suffered a couple games back. Jimmy Butler is also listed as out, as well as Bam Adebayo, et cetera, et cetera. Caleb Martin also out, who we'll talk about later on in the segment. Miami's chances of beating the Pacers a little bit trickier with PJ Tucker out of the lineup. What did you say, Wes?
Yeah, I mean, you're without 3/5 now of your starting lineup. You're hopeful, I think, that Tyler Herro comes back. And given that he's listed questionable, not out, I would guess that he's probably on track to play, and only because they kind of need him. And these games still do matter, despite the wackiness of that we're seeing from the NBA season so far, not just with the Heat dealing with actual injuries compared to other teams dealing with players being put in health and safety protocols and being without most of their starters in a lot of these games over the last weekend. So, look, you're losing PJ Tucker for this game tonight against a really big Indiana Pacers front court. That's going to be really tough. You're basically down to just one power forward in KZ Okpala, and power forward should be put in quotations. You got Dwayne Dedmon obviously available.
Is
but
Luke
you're without
Babbitt
your
still
starting
available?
front court. This is going to be really tough for the Heat to deal with it. They're going to try to space out Indiana. They're going to try to and teams have done that with great effect against the Pacers. It's why the Pacers have been struggling this season. So it's not like this is a lost cause for the Heat, but trying to match up with the Pacers, that's not going to happen anymore. They're going to have to play 5 out. They're going to have to space them off the floor and force guys like Sabonis and Miles Turner to a lesser degree out of their comfort zones.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, the state of the NBA is on shaky ground right now, but there have been some rule changes recently that the league, are adopting that might benefit the Miami Heat. Two-way players who initially had a 50-game max as far as their number of appearances throughout the course of a season will now have no limit on the number of games they can compete in. This new rule is effective immediately now through January 19th. The only player impacted by those changes are Caleb Martin, who's played a number of games already for the Miami Heat. So that means they could convert his contract to a regular standard contract or just keep him on the roster as a two-way player and extend his contract out through the rest of the year. Either way, that will total Miami's roster to 15 maximum allowed players on the roster. So Miami now has some big questions because Caleb Martin out over the next couple of games due to the health and safety protocols. He has not been cleared to play, which means he did test positive and probably is continuing to do so. It's not like he could just take 2 negative tests within 24 hours and be welcomed back onto the floor. So that's unfortunate for Caleb. Hopefully he is recovering well. But as far as the Heat's long-term chances of whether or not they add Martin or another player, there are some big questions regarding the decision that Miami has to make. I know we talked about Martin a lot lately. After that 28-point game, we were all kind of buying in to Caleb's chances of being added to this roster. But I do have concerns because if they do add Martin to the roster, they're basically keeping themselves out of the race of any other players down the road who are bought out from their contracts or just are available as free agents, they'd have to make a trade or cut a player on this roster, which would put them into the salary tax and not something that they're looking to do at this point in time. What do you think the next move is for Miami? Is it adding Caleb? Is it waiting, taking a chance?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, you mentioned that 28-point performance. Caleb never had a chance to follow that up, right? He was immediately put into health and safety protocols after that. I think we're supposed to assume right now that this is a breakthrough case with Caleb Martin, given that the Heat said that the entire team was vaccinated. Now, that was the Heat just saying it, right? So they could have been mistaken. They could have just flatly lied. They could have just been like, well, all the players are vaccinated, but like the two-way guys don't really count. So we have no idea when Caleb Martin is going to come back. This is good news, I think, for the Heat, this new rule that the NBA is putting in place. The same rule, by the way, that they had last year, right? And you saw a lot of teams take advantage of it last year with some of their two-way guys. They can basically let Caleb Martin just play out the rest of the season on a two-way contract, no problem. He had a 50-game limit under the old rule, no limit under the new rule. So they can just leave him on the two-way contract and then still sign somebody into that 15th spot in March, when the prorated minimum would keep them under the luxury tax. To your point, if they do that, Caleb Martin can't play in the postseason. So the big question is for the Heat, and the only question they really need to ask themselves is, do we think Caleb Martin is a guy we want in the playoffs playing for us? Or is he more of just sort of a regular season innings eater? And when the playoffs roll around, he's probably going to be out of the regular rotation anyway. When people shorten their rotations to probably about 9 players, like Spo probably will. I don't know that they know the answer to that yet. Again, we haven't seen the follow-up to that 28-point performance. We don't really know if this is just a blip and just maybe a hot pan moment for Caleb Martin, or if this is something that's sustainable. The good news for Miami is they don't have to answer that question right now. They don't have to answer any of these questions right now. Caleb Martin's already got unlimited time on a two-way contract. They don't have to do anything with him. He could just play out until the end of the regular season. And that's the date that I'm circling, David, is April 10th. That's the last day of the regular season. That is really when the Heat have to make that decision, right? Because they could sign him on the last day of the regular season into that 15th spot if it is still open, and then he's automatically eligible for the playoffs. Now, if a player that gets bought out is available and wants to play for Miami and is markedly and noticeably better than Caleb Martin, then you just do it. I think it's really that simple. I don't think this is as big of a deal as I think some people are making it out to be. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, Kevin Love becomes available on a buyout. Let's just say like the Cavaliers, this hot start, tanks, whatever. I'm just throwing a name out there. That's just an obvious one. Let's say Kevin Love gets bought out. And all right, I think most people would say Kevin Love, even at this point in his career, is probably more of a player you want in the postseason than Caleb Martin, right? I think the Heat, who veer towards veterans, would agree with that.
Yes.
Okay, if Kevin Love is willing to take a prorated minimum, you could bring him and stay under the luxury tax in March when he's bought out and available or whatever, and then you get to that point, then you just bring in Kevin Love and you say, sorry, Caleb, we'll sign you over the offseason. That's it. But if that bought out player doesn't materialize, then you just bring Caleb Martin on up, and they would probably wait until April 10th to do it. You'd wait until the very last minute that you could do it. I think that's probably what ends up happening.
So it's not necessarily an and or from what you're suggesting.
Not right now.
Right. I guess there is a risk involved. I think the Heat will figure that out. You're absolutely right as far as that they don't have to sign anybody. You've seen from the Heat a number of times over the course of the past few years of Pat Riley's tenure and Andy Ellisberg's tenure that they can make deals on the last day of the regular season. They don't necessarily rush into judgment. I wonder whether or not they'll feel more comfortable just keeping their guy, if they're huge believers in Caleb Martin, rather than entering the potential buyout free agency period and saying, you know what, we're going to look at Kevin Love or Thad Young or whoever else gets bought out. There's always a big name that gets bought out that always has people interested. Last year was LaMarcus Aldridge, who was a total game changer until he retired 9 games later. I don't know. I wonder what the Heat's going to do. I think you're right that obviously there's no need for them to make any rush decision, but there's always been a gambling sort of franchise. I think they would probably prefer having a veteran like Young or Love or anybody else that might be available rather than having to play Omer Yurt 7 minutes. And we're seeing now the loss of PJ Tucker. We saw it against the Pistons on Sunday night. How important a veteran like that who can do so many different things, who has that kind of presence in the locker room, etc. If you can get a guy like Young or Love or somebody else along those same lines, I think Miami will do it 10 times out of 10.
I agree.
Despite Caleb's progress, and there has been progress. That's the biggest plus in his favor, is that he's been progressing and trending in the right direction over the last few weeks. But who knows how he comes back? We saw Jason Tatum struggle with the effects of COVID for a long, long time. Who knows whether or not there's any kind of debilitation there, or whether or not he's having problems getting back into shape and things of that sort. So it's going to be an interesting question. We'll see how it plays out over the next couple of months. But for now, we did want to bring you all the latest news about Caleb Martin. We'll talk about something else going on around the league and how it impacts the Miami Heat. And of course, we'll bring up some trades later on after hearing from Nostradumbwes and his predictions for the week. But first, let me tell you all about Truebill. I've been talking about it recently and asking this question. Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? Because it's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is a new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. Truebill has over 2 million users and has helped save them over $100 million. You could be next. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. And also a reminder that BetOnline has you covered all season for more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues the march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus from basketball, football, the NHL, to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts, and don't forget to use that promo code LOCKEDON.
All right, thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. It's time to look into the future and make some predictions about the week in Miami Heat basketball. David, it is time for Nostradumbwes. Let's first look at a review on how we did last week. In Monday's game at the Cleveland Cavaliers, Nostradumbwes predicted Gabe Vincent would score 10-plus points in that game, and that is exactly what happened in that game. Gabe Vincent scoring, I think it was 11 points in that game. So that counts. Gabe Vincent delivers. Nostradumbwes starts the week off right. And then things go a little bit more south in these predictions. Wednesday at Philadelphia, PJ Tucker was predicted to have 4+ offensive rebounds. He only had 1 in that game. And then Friday in Orlando, the prediction was the Heat to score 120-plus points against one of the worst defenses in the NBA. They scored 115, David. So
close.
I think in the spirit of the prediction, I think the spirit of the prediction was correct. So we're going to chalk that up as a check mark on the side of Nostradumbwes there. Sunday in Detroit, Tyler Herro was predicted to score 26-plus points in that matchup. Tyler Herro did not play, so that prediction no longer counts. And so I think all in all, we could pretty much call it a 2 for 3 for Nostradumbwes if we're starting to stretch the bounds of logic a little bit, which is what we do here in Nostradumbwes' world. So let's go ahead and look at this week, starting tonight versus Indiana, playing the Pacers at home. Now, the original prediction for this game, David, was the Heat to hold Domantas Sabonis, who was averaging 21 points and 11 rebounds this month, to under 20 points. Now, Miami is quietly allowing the fewest points in the paint per game this season. The Pacers, not so quietly, very much relying on their front court players, their 2-time All-Star in particular, and Domantas Sabonis. Not very quietly, maybe shopping these players around, wanting to put those players in positions to succeed now so that their trade value is such they can maximize that in February by the time the trade deadline rolls around. So I think they're going to feed Sabonis often and early. And I would have stood with this prediction had it not, 20 minutes before we started recording, had we not gotten the news that PJ Tucker was going to be out for this game. And now I'm not really sure if Casey Okpala and Dwayne Dedmon are able to hold Sabonis to less than 20 points. But here's what I'm going to do anyway. I'm going to go ahead and predict it. The reasoning behind it isn't the same. I thought PJ Tucker would have his way with Domantas Sabonis. He's got a ton of lower body strength when his knee isn't hurt, and I thought he could keep Sabonis out of his little spots near in the low post. I don't think Casey Okpala is going to be able to do that the way that PJ Tucker would, and I think Dedmon is going to be having his hands full with Miles Turner. But I don't know. I'm a believer in. I think the Miami Heat will go to the zone pretty often in this game. I think they're going to wall off the paint. They're going to dare the Pacers shooters to make shots from beyond the arc. And I think somehow, some way, they still limit Domantas Sabonis to under 20 points, despite his all-star numbers this month that he's putting up.
That's a really bold prediction, and you've had a few over the course of the season. I mean, I hadn't even thought about it until we just started talking about this subject. The fact that we're looking at KZ Okpala starting a meaningful game in December. Like, it's not exactly a playoff game or anything like that, but he's getting starters minutes tomorrow just because you don't have anybody else. You can't add a player right now who's going to immediately be plugged into that starting lineup. So you're relying on Okpala to shut down Sabonis. I don't even know if that's the best matchup. Is Okpala better suited for guarding Miles Turner? No, probably not. I guess Dwayne Dedmon will have to be stretched out onto the floor on occasion, limiting what Turner can do. That's going to be an interesting one. Look, sure, I'll buy it. I don't think it's likely to happen, but sure, I'll listen to your predictions. I believe in you, Nostradumbwes.
The rules that the NBA put in place over the weekend, saying that if you have 2 or more players in health and safety protocols, that you're required to add somebody, and that somebody wouldn't count against your cap, and it wouldn't put a team like the Heat, for example, over the luxury tax. Should the Heat just lie and just like any one of these injured players that aren't already on the court? Like, just say Bam Adebayo is also being put in health and safety protocols. Like,
so why is he
traveled
sitting
with
on
the
the
team
sideline
on this last road trip. You know, he went out for some pizza late at night or something, and we just contract
pizza. He couldn't get enough. He couldn't get the Little Caesars pizza at Little Caesars Arena.
Yeah, and so he's like, you know what? I'm going to go out and get my own Little Caesars, and maybe you just lie and just say, hey, yeah, no, all these guys now, Jimmy Butler, Bam, they're all in health and safety protocols, and then you could just call people up from Sioux Falls or wherever you feel comfortable from. I don't know. I think they got to try something. Thursday, December 23rd, playing the Detroit Pistons at home in a rematch. We asked more from Kyle Lowry over the weekend, the last time these two teams played. And the Pistons do turn the ball over a lot. It wasn't so much over the weekend, but they do as a team over the course of the season tend to turn the ball over a lot. I think Kyle Lowry comes out. He gives us the game that we had been asking for. I'm not going to go points here. I'm not going to go assists here. I'm not going to go rebounds here, David. I'm going to go steals. I think Kyle Lowry has 3+ steals in this game, and he gets the Heat out in transition, getting them in those opportunities that Max Strus was talking about in the game after the game against the Pistons over the weekend. 3+ steals for Kyle Lowry on Thursday.
All right, that I believe. I think he can certainly take advantage of Killian Hayes or Cade Cunningham or one of the other ball handlers, even Corey Joseph, noted powerhouse Corey Joseph. I will go a step further and offer my own half a prediction and say that he'll eclipse his 19 points that he scored against the Pistons on Sunday night. I think we're going to see a slight resurgence of the Kyle Lowry offensive weapon that we called for because Miami needs it. And right now, even with Tyler out there, I think he just needs to step up, especially if PJ Tucker isn't there to be your outlet as he has been on so many occasions. He's not able to drive the baseline. He's not able to put up that floater at the end of the shot clock situation and things of that sort. So I want to see Kyle be more aggressive. So that's my 2 cents there as far as a prediction is concerned. He's going to eclipse the 19 points that he scored against the Pistons on Sunday.
Our final game of the week is Sunday, December 26th against the Orlando Magic. This time, the Heat will score 120+ points. How's that for a prediction, David?
Wow. Bringing in the oldies there, just saying, what did I have last time? Okay, yeah, that's fun. You know what? Yeah, I think the families are going to be spending time on Christmas. I think the Heat players are going to be energized. They're going to be at home. This is a great opportunity for them to spend a whole week in Miami after a long road trip where they've had a number of players out. I think Jimmy Butler might even make his return on Sunday the 26th. That seems like a possible scenario there. And if that's the case, they're just gonna wipe the floor with the Orlando Magic. No chance of them winning that game. So yeah, you know what? 120 points, spot on. I buy it 100%.
We're going to get to some of our favorite fake trade ideas that we have for the Miami Heat as trade season has sort of unofficially begun next. But first, let's tell them about Boost Mobile.
Yeah, you listen to podcasts for the power of knowledge, but you switch to Boost Mobile for the power of saving money. Get 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line and a free 5G phone when you switch, so you can get the latest episodes of Locked On Heat, all on one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save. That's Boost Mobile. A free phone is limited to new customers and just one per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers and coverage are not available everywhere or for all phones and networks. See boostmobile.com for details. Just a reminder that you can always reach us via email at lockdownheat or at gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskLHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show and leave a review. We're so close to our goal of 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I know all of you can do it. If you're watching the show, just go ahead and click that subscribe button. If you're listening to it on podcast, go ahead and do the same. Subscribe. Get it in multiple formats.
Smash that subscribe.
Absolutely. Yeah. Listen to all of the different versions of Locked On Heat that you possibly can. We need the support. We need your help. And we know that we've got a great community of fans behind us. But what we don't have is necessarily the best roster in the NBA. There are some concerns about the depth on this team, even as we've seen guys like Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, and others step up along the way. And so the Bleacher Report and friend of the program, Zach Buckley, wrote a piece on trade scenarios for each team. It was an interesting one. Of course, you know how these things play out. 30 teams, 30 different suggestions for them. And for Miami, there were some potential trade scenarios there that might bolster Miami's chances at a deeper playoff run. I guess before we even get that, should we cover the news and notes from around the league or just save those for after the trade talk?
Let's just get right into the trade talk. You already teased it enough.
All right. All right. So the first trade target for the Miami Heat, Ben McLemore of the Portland Trailblazers, a guard forward combo wing player who shoots the ball on occasion. He's somewhat of a streaky shooter. He's making $4 million $2.4 million for the Portland Trailblazers this year. He's on a 1-year deal, a veteran minimum there. So does Miami make a deal for Ben McLemore to help bolster their 3-point shooting? Wes, what do you think?
Well, it should first be noted that when you talk about what Miami even has to trade, the reason why we're talking about guys like Ben McLemore and not Ben Simmons right now is because you look at what the Heat realistically could deal, and it's not much. And I think if the Heat come February, come the trade deadline, and if they want to make a move, really the only thing that they can shop is KZ Okpala, and the only reason you bring him up is because, first of all, he's not part of the core rotation when everybody's healthy, but he is still young enough where he could have some perceived value. And you're basically asking a lot of different front offices, the other 29 across the league, what do you think of KZ Okpala? Maybe they were really high on him coming out. Maybe they're high on him based on what they see over these next few weeks, right? Because KZ has a major opportunity here to kind of develop and take the next step in his career and make himself an NBA player. So if he shows out over these next few weeks while the Heat are still navigating all these injuries, then I think he could be a potential trade chip. The problem is he's only making $1.7 million. And so that's why you can't really move him in a deal to get a player on a major contract. It's kind of these minor minimum type of deals like a Ben McLemore. I think that would be okay. I think you look at the other guys that were brought up in this article, like Alex Len and Brad Wanamaker. I think all those guys make sense for Miami. I think all of them, maybe not Brad Wanamaker. I saw him up close in Golden State last year. I'm not sure he's an NBA player right now, but McLemore, he can make threes for you on the perimeter. He can play a couple different positions for you. Alex Len is a big body. I think the Heat need to probably add another big body. Are they better long-term than KZ Okpala? Absolutely not. But right now, they're definitely more impactful. And if you're a Heat team that's just looking to add some depth, then yeah, that makes sense. Could I throw another couple names at you?
Well, let me just wrap this up then to kind of put the kibosh on these suggestions. Alex Len, he's on a 2-year deal with the Sacramento Kings. He's scheduled to make 3.7 this year and 3.9. So you're going to have to throw in some other salary filler just to bring in 7-footer Alex Len. Not necessary. It would have been a great move a couple years ago just to light a fire under Hassan Whiteside's ass, but that's not likely at this point in time. Brad Wanamaker in Indiana, now he's only making 1.3, but as you said, not really an NBA player. I had totally forgotten. This is my own version of who he played for, because when I'm figuring out Ben McLemore is a Trailblazer. Brad Wanamaker, I thought he was a Hornet still. No, he's with the Pacers right now. And Len with the Kings. I still thought he was with the Hawks, although that probably wasn't until a couple of years ago. But yes, let me have some of your other trade suggestions here. I'm curious.
I just have two more. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but Rodney Magruder, you can have a homecoming
Oh,
with him.
bringing a scavenger back.
Yeah, he could he could play a couple spots for you, especially on the wing. I still think the Heat are like if you're gonna make a deal, I think it's either for a big man like Alex Len or somebody else, or a wing who is has been in the league for a while, knows how to play defense at a playoff level. Rodney Magruder can do that at least, and his contract fits within a deal for KZ Okpala. The other one is Orlando's Etuan Moore, can shoot some threes for you. He's out of the rotation right now for the Magic. He's been a guy that is a very much a journeyman and has basically been almost out of the league a couple different times. But again, when you're trading a $1.7 million salary, you don't really get to be picky. And I still think that Etuan Moore, I don't know. I don't know if he's more impactful than KZ Okpala. I guess that would be the question that the Heat would have to ask themselves.
How much is Terrence Ross making? He's a name that's always been
Too
linked.
much. He would be a buyout guy, I think, if the Magic aren't able to deal him. I have a couple more trade ideas for you.
All right, let's
I'll do them quickly. Yeah. Markieff Morris and KZ Okpala. The Heat could package both of those guys, and now you're looking at something more closer to $4.5 million that the Heat could bring back. And now you could do that, right? And if you're bringing even money or something a little bit less back, you could still convert Caleb Martin on a prorated minimum later, not to the 15th spot, but to the 14th spot. So if you're able to time this out right and make sure that the finances are such that it works out, it takes some jumping through hoops, but you could do it and still say you could still do a 2-for-1 type of deal and still stay under the tax. Now, what does a package of Markieff Morris and KZ Okpala realistically bring you? I have no idea. Again, it depends on if Markieff Morris is healthy at all this season and what KZ Okpala looks like for these next few weeks. But a couple players that came to mind right away was Jalen Smith from Phoenix. His contract lines up with what I'm talking about. Has sort of been a bust for the Suns. And they're not really in. They already went out and got JaVale McGee as their backup center. They're kind of out on Jalen Smith, it looks like, at this point. And if you're Phoenix and you're going all in with Chris Paul's window, it kind of makes sense to maximize that roster spot. Could you do? I think there's no doubt that if Markieff Morris is healthy and playing, he's way better a player than Jalen Smith is at this point in their careers. And KZ Okpala is a nice little throw-in if you're trying to get another developmental piece, and obviously you need that contract. The other one is Bryn Forbes, our old pal Bryn Forbes out of the San Antonio Spurs. They're going nowhere fast. He's older on a veteran roster or on a young roster that's giving more and more playing times to a young guard group. You wonder if the Heat could benefit from having a guy like Bryn Forbes. It would be a swap of, hey, let's trade one experienced front court player for another experienced backcourt player. I don't know if that's where the Heat want to distribute their resources, but it's just a guy who's salary matched what this package would be.
So in theory, you could trade KZ Okpala and Markieff Morris for Bryn Forbes. So you add 3-point shooting and championship experience. You bring another championship player who's played alongside PJ Tucker. You could still add Caleb Martin to a standard deal on this contract on this roster, and then still pick up, say, Bryn Forbes' teammate Thad Young if he's bought out from the Spurs. You could,
I mean, you would have to go injury tax in order to do it. So you would be asking yourself, if you're the Heat, is Thad Young worth going over the luxury tax for? Ultimately, I just think that the Bryn Forbes deal leaves you a little too thin in the front court, and I kind of think Jalen Smith deal does too. These 2-for-1s are so hard for these like end of bench type of players. They just very rarely make much sense. I have one more trade for you. I know I'm going long here, but I got one more for you.
Let's do it.
The Brooklyn Nets get Kyle Lowry and KZ Okpala.
Oh, come on.
The Miami Heat get Kyrie Irving. Now, in Florida, you do not have the same rules, at least currently, and probably never under Ron DeSantis, that you have in New York City. Kyrie Irving's going to be able to play home games and practice at home for Miami. If the Heat are looking at this team and they're not where they want to be by the trade deadline, and Brooklyn is just looking to sell Kyrie Irving now so that they can get any sort of meaningful help for this season, which is it's title or bust for Brooklyn, and Kyrie Irving ain't helping you right now. And I know that there's some stuff that maybe he could be a part-time player, but that's everybody knows, everybody can see the writing on the that's not going to work. Okay. Kyrie Irving is a part-time player is not like Kyrie Irving is already part-time when he's full-time. Okay. So part-time Kyrie is not going to work for you. I just wonder if that's something that gets Brooklyn interested. I think it would. Kyle Lowry makes a lot of sense for that team. KZ Okpala is thrown in for salary matching purposes. And if you're the Heat, you get a borderline top 15 guy, an ace scorer in Kyrie Irving that you don't really have, a guy who could stretch the floor for Bam and Jimmy. I don't know. Worth
I
asking.
think I listen. You saved the juiciest one for last. We should have started off with that one. To hell with Brad Wanamaker. No offense, Brad. I mean, Kyrie Irving. I don't even know where to get into. For the Nets, I think it would make a lot of sense. Like
Yes.
in many ways, that team would become better. Not saying Kyrie Irving is a worse player than Kyle Lowry. I think Lowry would be a better fit for Brooklyn and what they're trying to accomplish. He provides that wing defense. He gets some, multiple positions he can guard. He'll take charges, something Kyrie Irving has never done. I mean, he's just a different, complete player. I think he would fit alongside. Look, Brooklyn's offense basically comes down to give James Harden the ball or give KD the ball. Kyle Lowry's perfectly fine with it, and I think it would make a lot of sense for them. And yeah, you're right. Okpala down the road, maybe he can contribute something. But then from the Heat perspective, can they get Kyrie Irving in line? Can they get him to buy in? Because we know with Kyle Lowry, at the very least, whatever his production on the floor is, he is an NBA player. He's willing to put up with Heat culture and all the demands of this franchise. Not to mention the fact that Jimmy Butler would kind of be a little pissed off at having one of his best friends traded away to the Brooklyn Nets. And I think he'd be happy for Kyle for the opportunity to potentially win a championship, but it would cost Jimmy the chance of winning a championship. So I don't know that.
Do you think it would? Do you think trading Kyle Lowry would, for Kyrie Irving, a better player? I think undoubtedly, very clearly a better player, would cost Jimmy Butler the chance of winning a championship. I think if anything, it would extend that championship window.
Maybe, but you're counting on Jimmy being at his peak for another couple of years, and I don't know that that's realistic.
Are you? Because if you've got Kyrie Irving at his peak, I don't know that you need Jimmy at his peak. You can take 20% worse Jimmy Butler if you've got Kyrie Irving. Can I just before we even go down this rabbit hole even more that I opened up here, you asked a very key question. Can the Heat get Kyrie Irving to buy in? Let me just save you all the trouble. No, they can't. Nobody can. Kyrie Irving he's not buying in for any. If he's not buying in when he gets to run the franchise with Kevin Durant, his best friend in the league or whatever, and he's still just like, you know what, I'd rather just not play. Nobody can get Kyrie Irving to buy in. I'm sorry, Heat culture, like not even Heat culture could do it. All right. It's just it's so I think if this were brought to Pat Riley's desk, I think he would think about it. But I think it is so easy to do this in a trade machine, David, and just be like, of course you should do this. It is so much harder in real life with all of the human aspects that you're talking about, the feelings in the locker room, all this stuff, all the good vibes that you still have in that locker room despite the injuries. To bring Kyrie Irving, an agent of chaos like him, into that locker room, who's an unknown to most of those players in that locker room, to do that, I just don't think even Pat Riley would have the guts to make that happen.
I was just trying to think. I'm trying to think of guys like Tucker and Bam and Jimmy, talking about getting up and working out and things of that sort, and accountability. And Kyrie's off there talking about his third eye being closed during the winter break or something like that.
What is practice really? Does it even exist?
Yeah. What is practice? Not to go Allen Iverson here, but is practice even a real thing here? Wow, you really did open up Pandora's box here. A very interesting one. I think Sean Marks, conversely, would smash that subscribe button, as you said. I think he would do that in a heartbeat. And listen, it's talking about smashing that subscribe button. You all should too. Yet again, you want to add something else?
No, I ask the listener, like, think about that. Kyrie Irving and just think about it. That's all I'm saying. Is that something that you would even be wanting to root for if you were a Heat fan?
Yeah, but wow. Okay, we could have done a whole.
So I just wanted to ask the question. That's it.
This is Joker level mentality here. This is some men just want to watch the world burn. You kind of threw kerosene onto a fire. We had a little small fire going. And you're just like, you know what? It's the 30-minute mark. Why not blow it all up, baby? All right. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember, you can always reach out to us via email or via Twitter. Thank you so much for always subscribing to the show. Every episode is free and available wherever you get the show. So make sure you sign up to get the best coverage available. Make sure you also check out Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. This is David Ramil signing off for now. Thanks for joining me, Joker.
Wrap it up, B.
There you go.